it out.
Okay, two people are waiting in your
Might have
thing.
been me and you.
No, because I'm just on your page.
Yep, we're good to go, man. Hello, welcome. Doing another stream today. Gonna finish up the inks on two of the things I drew for Mainframe Con this past weekend. I am joined by my buddy Buck Adam, or just Adam, Buck Lightning, whatever you want to call him. Uh, we do a video series together on a channel called Lightning Culture. Adam, say hi to the no people that might be watching.
Hi, one person that's watching. How are you today? Feel free to chat with us. The chat is open.
Yes.
Ask questions. Call Travis a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Whatever
Oh, I
makes you
thought you were
feel
gonna
good.
say a curse word for a second.
No, I'm an adult male who's capable of not cursing.
Yeah, incapable of wearing like clothes, right? Like, top and
I'm
bottom
capable of
clothes,
wearing clothes.
top bottom
I'm
clothes.
I'm technically in clothing right now.
Let's see. Let me get this all shared out on social media.
That's just what the people want to see. Someone typing onto a keyboard.
Do 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 do
Woo!
do do.
Whatever. Dance art monkey.
Let's see, and I'll do that.
I may change your status in my phone to art monkey.
Why?
I don't know because it makes me laugh.
Okay. I don't see the comedy in it. All right, that's cool. I guess.
Well, you wouldn't,
I
huh?
mean, it's fine. You know. I thought you were supposed to be an expert on comedians and comedy, but I guess I was wrong.
I never claimed to be an expert on comedians and comedy. I don't know why you put it that way, but let it not be said that I'm an expert on comedians and comedy.
All right. So I'm gonna get started. So this is so Adam, you'll remember this is the last one I worked on Sunday when you were with me on the live stream before. And I tweaked it a little bit. Might tweak this Cyclops' hand, but we have Weapon X, Age of Apocalypse, Wolverine here, and the same goes for this version of Cyclops here in the foreground. And I'm just gonna tighten this hand in particular up. I added that in. I don't think I did that on the live stream. I added that in after the fact. It kind of um, tied the image, I guess, together a bit more. It made a little bit more sense. Hopefully, you'll be seeing that soon as well, Adam. I know it's gonna be delayed on your part, on your side.
Yeah, it's a few seconds delayed on the video. Um,
But you'll see in a second.
you know, one day I'd like to ask. I don't know if it's Dave Crocombe or uh, whoever the artist was on Hulk 181, but whoever designed Logan's hair, I'd just like to have a conversation with him. Like, who came up with this, and why has like three generations of people like stood by while Logan had this ridiculous hair.
Ridiculous. It's amazing. Are you just jealous because you're follically
And
challenged?
well, first of all, follically challenged. Secondly, um,
What's the
he
proper
looks
word?
he looks like his head is behind the turbine of a jet.
I guess I guess you could say that, yeah.
That doesn't exist in nature. It
Or
looks like Don
it's
King
like a
got
bird
put in
that's
that.
about to fly off the page.
Anyway, I've just always thought it looked ridiculous, and I mean, we're we're on what 45
Yeah.
years of Wolverine,
Hey,
something
real
like
quick
that.
about Wolverine. Didn't some kid create like some it was like some contest or something created Wolverine in hindsight, or someone submitted the character of Wolverine? Wasn't there like some kind of article
I,
about that a few years ago? I didn't know if
I've
that was
never
true
heard
or
that.
not.
That doesn't sound true. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just a random character in the Hulk. And I mean, if that's true, then there's some kid's rich. Well, I mean, he wouldn't be a kid anymore. He'd be in his 50s. But
I think, if anything, they might have signed some stuff away. Um, real quick, what I'm about to do right now, I'm taking this stuff that looks like silly putty. It's a kneaded eraser, and I'm just gonna lighten up Wolverine's pencils a bit, so when I start inking, the inks will sit a little bit better, and I'll be able to kind of see what I'm doing.
so we got, it's technically two people watching this currently because in order to follow
Oh
along,
yeah,
I have to be in there. But whoever's watching and listening, thank you.
yeah. Yep.
If
Thanks
you have
very
any
much.
questions, if you have any questions or thoughts about anything, doesn't even have to be book related. If you have a question about,
Life, relationships,
no,
finances.
you definitely don't want to ask about relationships because Travis's wife is going to divorce him any minute now. But but any questions about drawing or
I
you
don't
know
know why you hang out with that Buck Adam guy.
What did your mom say that?
No, that's what Jasmine says.
I
She's
know
like
your
he's
mom talks bad about me when I'm not around.
yeah. She's like, oh, you're friend with that dumb cowboy hat. She's like, I just want like if I saw him in person wearing that, I just want to knock it off his head.
This this isn't a joke, by the way, folks. I genuinely dislike Travis's mom.
Oh, she might be one of the few people watching right now.
Well, at least she knows.
Jeez. I don't even know if y'all. No, I'm pretty sure y'all didn't meet at my wedding.
No, I didn't meet any of your family at the wedding.
Even though a lot of my family was there, it was you were too shy, I guess, too bashful.
Was it really a lot of your family? I feel like a lot of your family would have skipped your wedding.
Jeez.
I hope your mom really is in the chat so she'll be listening as I insult you and suggest your wife's going to leave you.
That's right, Marilyn. Talk crap about my hat again. All right, so what I'm going to start doing, get back to the subject at hand. I'm just grabbing a scrap piece of paper so I can put my hand down on top of this without trying to smear some of the pencil as I go down. But I got one of these Prismacolor 5-point pens. Honestly, brand really to me doesn't really matter. This doesn't really smear or smudge that much. It dries pretty fast. This is 08. I like the Prismacolor ones. They're decently priced. I like them slightly more than the Microns, but to be honest, you know, I'm not sponsored by anybody, so to me, it makes a line and it works. But if Prismacolor somehow stumbles on this, I only will use Prismacolors. Wink.
You know, it wasn't that funny, but it is funny to me because since there's a delay, I didn't get to see you wink.
Even better.
I just heard you say it. Um, I don't know if the people watching are the ones who were watching when you did the initial sketches because you're technically not drawing so much as inking
Yeah.
sketches that you did previously.
Does that make
But,
me a phony?
I mean, that doesn't. I mean, there's plenty of other things. No, so the two versions of Wolverine that Travis is drawing or inking, whatever, will not be traditional Wolverine, the one you might have seen in the movies or the animated. They're Wolverine's had like a bunch of different costumes over the years, and so these are going to be two different versions of Wolverine. One is the one that you're doing now is the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. If you saw the Apocalypse X-Men movie, it's like that, but not crappy. So there was an alternate timeline where Apocalypse took over the world and killed, I think, like 70% of humanity. And in that universe, Wolverine lost one of his hands when Cyclops blew it off, and which does not sound the way I intended it to sound.
Maybe it's just you that has your mind in the gutter like that.
Maybe so. So that's what this version is, and then later on he'll be drawing or inking rather the Weapon X Wolverine,
Yeah, well,
which
which I have around here. Hold on. So right now I'm doing the Age of Apocalypse one, but yeah, but this is the one.
now the Age of Apocalypse Wolverine actually did appear in the X-Men movies
Did he?
a couple of times. Well, in uh,
Are you thinking
the
Days
first
of
time
Future Past? I mean,
he did appear in Days of Future Past, in full Weapon X gear, and then I think technically no, yeah, that's the only one he appeared in the gear. So yeah, it's the one scene that Days of Future Past Wolverine is in. He's technically the Weapon X Wolverine.
okay. So I'm just doing right now, just adding in the contour line to Wolverine here, and that's the outermost line that kind of defines the character. And I'm using a. This would technically be a thicker pen compared to the rest that I have. All the other ones I have for the Prismacolor fine points are go to a smaller point size. So this is probably the biggest in the set that I have, and I'm going to use that on here. But when I go to Cyclops, I'll probably actually bump that up to a bigger line weight. And Adam, you probably already know. You might not know, but usually if something's closer to the camera, your line weight should probably be thicker. You should have a thicker line weight in the foreground versus the background.
Cool story, nerd.
Oh, I should
Hey,
have
you
got my
invited
real
me
friend
here.
Tim Laddie to join in instead.
Your real friend Tim Laddie is either gardening or taking a nap.
Whatever happened to his Lamborghini Chicken?
I don't know. I don't know if his Lamborghini Chicken got a mansion yet
Oh, for
or
the
not. A
uninitiated,
chicken
our friend
mansion.
had acquired a chicken. Not to go into the whole story, but is apparently the Lamborghini of chickens.
So basically, in a one of those things that doesn't really happen to people, but he's one of those people that it happens to. Um, he got a chicken walked up to his house. His house is in the middle of nowhere next to
Why did it
a
cross the
water.
road, Adam?
Huh?
Nothing. Dumb joke.
Oh, that was almost funny. Anyway, so the chicken walks up to his house. His house is in the middle of nowhere next to a water processing plant, and it it looks like a pigeon, like it's all black, like every part of it, and apparently it's like the rarest chicken in the world, or one of the most rare. It's a chicken that's worth like $500, and it just randomly walked up to his house, and he just kept it because that's a thing you do.
Well, of
And
all people, it would stumble upon it. It had to be Tim.
right, and so I looked it up because I was like, this doesn't look like a chicken, and but it is, and yeah, the article referred to it as the Lamborghini of chickens, which tickled him to no end.
Well, it is a funny phrase when you say that. The
But yeah,
Lamborghini of Chico. It is a funny phrase when you think about it.
and some woman tried to trade it for a haircut. She was going to give him a haircut in exchange for his $500 chicken.
I mean, depending on what happened to the chicken, he might have had. I mean, I don't know if the chicken's still alive. If he was,
No,
I hope he's
he's
watching,
keeping
so
it.
he will. I wonder if he's trying to call me right now, and he's like, "I have you know, I'm great. I'm a great chicken father."
I guarantee he's not trying to call you right now. Again, he's either gardening or napping. But but yeah, he decided he's going to keep the chicken, and he's been bragging about how he's going to have fresh eggs. Um, you know, like he's a 20-year-old woman or something.
He's got fresh eggs. It doesn't sound right.
But yeah, so Ghostbusters artist Tim Laddie has a Lamborghini of chickens. So there you go. Things you did not expect to learn on a live stream about Wolverine.
Ladies, he's single.
Ladies, you might want to keep him single.
Yeah. Actually, please keep away from him. I hope he watches this later. He probably won't. I know for a fact he probably won't, actually. Why y'all talking about me, bro? Let's see.
Sun's out, guns out.
I'm just looking at the costume, make sure I'm getting this. Okay. I was like, well, did he have anything else to his costume? But this costume's actually pretty simple.
Yeah, the most he really had was like a couple of those red divots. I don't know what you call them.
So he's got some,
like claw marks
on his forehead, one on his chin, and he has a couple going across his chest at the top on his pecs, and a red belt. That's it.
Yeah, but to be fair, one of the most iconic designs as far as Wolverine costumes. He's had a lot of costumes, but a lot of them have been bad.
I don't know. Are you a fan of the mustard colored one with the brown accents or whatever? Or I guess the brown and mustard is what I would call it.
The brown and yellow.
Yeah, it's more like a mustard. It's more like a mustard yellow than yellow.
Well, either way, it's huh?
So yeah, well, he should have burned it.
Okay, it's a little harsh, but I mean, I'm not Wolverine, so I don't care.
I didn't know that was gonna, trigger something.
No, the Logan miniseries, or not Logan, but Wolverine miniseries that Frank Miller drew actually is one of his worst costumes. He had like this weird hairnet over his face.
If you have Google, definitely Google that and check it out for those listening. Let's see.
So,
I'm actually showing zero
but yeah,
viewers
this
right
one
now.
you're going to. No, it's still got two other people.
Oh, okay.
Well,
hello, other person.
I mean, we don't know who they are. They might not be people you know. They could be like hobos.
Could be. Hobos with
hobos
great Wi-Fi.
Hanging out at Best Buy. Best Buy.
Huh?
And they just decided they were going to randomly watch you draw.
Maybe. Let's see. So right now I'm just using, you're not going to see it yet, Adam, but one of these, it's a French curve that I'm doing just to kind of get his claws just right. Just kind of get it straight as possible.
I hate the French.
What was that?
I said I hate the French.
Ugh. I mean, they gave me French curves, so I'm not going to complain. Helps me get this done a little faster. Such a random thing to complain about. I hate the French. Were you one of those people when they like to really push calling stuff freedom fries instead of French fries for a while?
No, but completely uninteresting fact that's related. The other day, I was thinking about freedom fries because I was making French toast, and I was wondering, like, is French toast like French fries, or did they actually invent that?
I don't know. Or now a thing to add on, did people call it freedom toast after a while?
They should.
Out of curiosity,
Uh,
have any comic shops open near you yet, or is everything is still closed? Because I got some of the stores around me are doing curbside now. They had stopped doing it.
um, I expect the comic shops to start opening up because I believe um, they're going to be DC is supposed to start shipping the few books they have soon.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually you had told me about that after. Not to sound negative, but after looking at it, it looks like it's just like you were telling me. It was just those $5 giant, like 100-page giant ones. And some of the other books are actually reprints of the new content that came out in the old 100-page giants that came out like 2 years ago.
well, yeah, I mean, it's all stuff that they had already had. It's not anything new exactly. However, I do think it would be a good thing for comic shops to open up to a limited degree. Um, there's stuff that I'd like to go past by, say, BSI Comics and buy. I know Three Alarm out in Biloxi, Mississippi, uh, open is technically open, but they
Yeah.
kind of open when they want to. So there's not any set hours.
Okay, I was just curious as all because they I just saw announcements for a few stores around me, like I want more comics, talking about their pickup hours that they're doing curbside. Um, and I told you Monday I don't want to say the store's name just in case I don't know if it'd get them in trouble or whatnot, but I was actually able to go to a store this past Monday and go walk around. I was the only one in there. They would
They
even if
can't
there
get in
was
trouble
multiple
for
people,
that.
they wouldn't let multiple people in there, but I wasn't
Yeah, so
supposed
with
to.
Three Alarm, they told me that um, the local government is allowing them three people at any given time into their store. So it's even when they're open, they're not totally open. You can't just walk in, but no, I mean they can allow one person in there to. I mean, you weren't there specifically to shop. The guy just said, "Look, as long as you're here, if you want,
Well,
you
I
can look
ended
around."
up buying more stuff because of that. So technically, yes, I was shopping.
I don't. Wasn't that supposed to be a secret?
I didn't say what a shop it was.
No, not from your wife.
Oh, she found out. Yeah, fun story about that.
She's
As soon as I
she's
left
a
the store, I
she's a
called
bit of a
Adam because
sleuth.
I was so excited to buy books. But then I was like, oh man, I probably shouldn't tell my wife that I was buying some comic books or whatever. She already knew about some of the other stuff I was picking up. I was like, oh, I wonder how she would feel about that.
Most men hide drugs and horrors from their wives. Travis hides X-Men comics.
If anything, and that's the well, I best say it's more obscure comics actually. What I was coming home with and rating some of the dollar bin stuff.
Right. It's even worse than X-Men. You're cheating on her with Nexus comics.
Oh yeah, Next is good, man. It's the rude dude.
Comic fans are not. I'm pretty sure whoever's watching this doesn't know who the rude dude is.
Stephen Rude, man. He's a American comic book artist, and his first things he worked on was a book called Nexus that came out in the '80s. And well, I guess it's not too recent, but when DC had that it was with Johnny Quest and a bunch of the other Hanna Barbera characters recently by DC. Future Quest, that's what I'm thinking of. He was doing that.
Oh, he worked on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. What's his name was supposed to be the artist on it. The guy who's co-drawing uh, Strange Adventures for DC right now,
I don't
but he
know.
couldn't keep the schedule.
Well, neither can. No offense to Steve Rude, that's one thing. He takes his time.
Let me look that up because it's bothering me. Strange Adventures #1.
Are you talking about Strange Adventure? Wasn't there like another strange thing to, or Strange Academy or something like that from
Evan
Marvel?
Doc Shaner.
Okay.
Evan Doc.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see
So
Doc
Marvel
Shaner
has,
doing those.
huh?
I can see Doc Shaner doing that book.
Oh, I mean, it was beautiful. He did a great job, but I think he only did 2 issues, and then they had to get somebody else because he couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
Um, which is unfortunately a problem with a lot of modern comic book artists. And again, to some degree or another, that's because now comics companies expect artists to ink their own stuff, which at least doubles the amount of time
Yeah.
it takes to do work, and I really don't know that it's that much benefit. I mean, I'm sure y'all get paid more based on
I'll
that,
say that.
but
Yeah.
but you're probably not getting paid double what you would have gotten, which is what they would have to pay if they had anchors.
And also, I mean, good inkers have probably been taken for granted because they have inkers like local guy John Dell is probably taken for granted. Another guy I follow who's really good for Marvel is Walden. Was it Walden Wong? I think his name is. Um, I might be wrong, but he was doing some stuff like some X-Men, Spider-Man stuff. He was really good. But yeah, most new artists, newer modern comic book artists, they do everything.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely created problems in the industry, and I understand it's a cost-cutting measure, but the art, and there's some artists who do better work. If not, I don't know that a lot, but there are some artists who probably do better work inking their own stuff. But there's a lot of artists that did better because they had someone because inking is people. There's an old joke that if you've ever watched a Kevin Smith movie,
Oh,
they call
tracing. Oh,
inkers tracers, but and look, and there are inkers that's all they do is just trace. They don't really add anything, but there's a lot of great inkers who really help flesh out the pencilers. Penciler is what they used to call comic book artists, like the person who draws in pencil, which is what this sketch was, and then the inker would come in and draw on top of it. But there's a lot of examples if you look online of inkers like say like Wade von Grawbadger or
that sounds like a
Scott
fake name.
Williams. Huh?
Say the first name again.
Wade von Grawbadger?
Doesn't that sound a little like I believe you? Like, but it almost sounds like a fake name.
I mean, it's German or Austrian or something. He's the guy that he for a long time he was kind of because there's certain inkers that were known for working with certain artists, and for a long time Wade von Grawbadger was like Stuart Eminem's inker, and I know he worked on Ultimate Spider-Man at one point. I want to say he worked on Avengers.
When he worked with Stewart, did he do Next Wave? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Okay.
Then there's Scott Williams who inked guys like Jim Lee and Mark Silvestri.
You know what's interesting is I just watched a video recently of Jim Lee inking his own artwork. And I never really thought of him inking his own work. But it was interesting to see like what he was using tool wise, and it came out really good. He was doing like I think he had drawn it before, but it was I think he was redrawing it was an Aquaman, and it was supposed to be for charity or whatever, to be given away soon. But it was actually not too bad. But I've heard some stories about him, having a lot of different inkers over the years, and him getting to the point where he wouldn't even draw, like if he was drawing like an X-Men book, he wouldn't even draw the claws or the ears on Wolverine's costume. He would just let the inker do that just so he could be, I guess, faster.
Yeah, I've heard little things like that. I mean, at this point, he doesn't really. I mean, he'll draw sketches, but more often than not, if Jim Lee's drawing a sketch these days, it's probably another Batman sketch, which he can pretty much do in his sleep by now.
Yeah, well, I mean, he really became known for all the Batman stuff after Hush, right?
Yeah, when he switched over to when he sold Wildstorm to DC, he agreed to, and I'm sure that was part of the deal that he wanted to draw DC characters, which he had never worked for DC before.
I think he
And
always
then
wanted to, though.
then he just became Mr. Batman. And and I love Hush. I think it's one of the best Batman stories ever, and he does an amazing job on that book. But whenever I see Jim Lee sketching Batman, I just kind of roll my eyes because I'm like, dude,
Hmm.
like, like draw something else, like anything. Draw Gumby.
Draw
Like
Gumby.
why? Well, I'm just saying, like, dude, we've seen your Batman sketch like literally hundreds of times at this point. It's not impressive anymore. And you as you and I discussed, I don't know if it was on the last live stream or whatever, but Batman's not that hard to draw. Um, at least not from the chest up, because it's a pretty simple costume that covers most of
Yeah.
his facial
By the way,
features.
this was last live stream. I do remember now.
Well, we record a lot, so I'm not
Well,
real
no, no,
sure
I'm just
where.
I'm just letting you know. Yeah, you're right.
Ugh.
Just trying to let you know you're right, Adam. Jeez.
Well, I mean, I'm always right, so like it's not that impressive. Uh, so, what Travis is doing right now, or actually, it's hard to tell if it's right now, because of the delay. But you're doing a little bit of cross hatching. Uh,
Some like
on.
feathering and stuff. If you're seeing what I'm doing on the shoulder,
Mhm.
or are you talking about the hair?
I'm talking about the shoulder. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's a bad example if y'all don't know what cross hatching is. It's not. It's semi cross hatching.
So what
But
hatching is, and I have my little scrap piece of paper, and so what you might see all these tons of lines. That's just me just getting my pens ready or getting used to using a pen. But anyway, hatching is when I start to use something to shade. So this is a head right here. If I want to add shade to this side of the head, I would just draw either a diagonal or some line, and like that, and that's going to apply a shade. And when you want to start building up your values in terms of your how dark this is, then you do what's called cross hatching, and you come the opposite way, and you start to add in shade. And the closer you put the lines together, the darker it's going to be. So it just takes some practice getting used to how to use hatching effectively. So if I was going to keep doing something on this neck, for instance, I might want it darker towards the bottom. So I'm going to just put my lines a little bit closer, and then I'm going to come back and cross hatch. And the farther I get back to the back side of the neck here, the closer I'll get together, and that's going to make it look darker. So I'm kind of using that more of a stylized version on the Wolverine. When I do this hatchet, it's almost like a feathering kind of thing. But yeah, same idea, in my opinion.
Do you ever use pointillism when you're trying to create shade?
Yeah, it depends on what it is. I like to use it more as a texture because when you use pointillism, what Adam's talking about is when I use just dots as shading. So instead of doing the hatching here, let's go to this. Looks like a random Spider-Man type head. Let's finish it off. So if I was gonna add shading here with what he's talking about pointillism, I just start making dots. But the closer I make them together, almost like with the hatching, the darker it's going to start to be. But I find this version of drawing, if you're trying to shade and use pointillism, actually I think pointillism works great when you're trying to do stuff like concrete or rocks or something like that, and it adds a lot more texture and really lets the reader know what that this is supposed to be different than, say, like Wolverine's metal claws, which will have a different kind of shading or rendering on it versus this concrete, right?
Yeah. The one real drawback of pointillism is that it takes longer.
Yes, it is much longer. It could be worth it. Now, because I also work digitally, there's a brush I use if I want to do something like that. There's just like almost, it's just a spray brush that does the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
But there's some things that also do hatching too in digital. But there's something digital can't do. You can't get the same. It's gonna sound like Bob Rossing, but like a happy accident type of thing. I used to hear that a lot when I was in college in art school, and what they mean is like you might have a mistake, but it was actually like it's like a happy accident. It's like, oh man, the ink smudged a little bit here, or this didn't look right. It's like, oh, that actually looks really good. You don't get that. It's a lot more controlled. I think what I've heard someone say before is actually Derek Donovan, our friend, had told me it's like drawing with training wheels, and that's what I think about now when you draw digitally.
Derek Donovan is the guy who killed Green Lantern's girlfriend.
Himself.
Yes. He
Yeah.
murdered her.
Yeah. Thanks, Derek. Now we have that the term fridging. Thanks.
Um, and again, like the chat is open. If you have any questions, no question is too stupid.
No, feel free. Or if someone has anything else to say, just a hi or something.
One thing, like if anybody wants to comment on this, is like, is this a convenient time to do a live stream? That's
Yeah,
something
this
that we're
is
trying
more
to
of an
figure out.
experiment for today. Because I told me and Adam were talking, and we do videos on his channel, Lightning Culture, which you should definitely check out. We talk about art books and movies. Right now, we're still talking about movies. We had to re-record this one, but the next one we're going to talk about is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Probably Friday we'll record that.
For the second time.
Yeah, for a second time, unfortunately. But going back to what we were saying is, I want to do another live stream to see if this is something that might interest people. But then there's this other question of what time should I make it? So that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. If an afternoon time during like while people should be at home is better, or should I just do it in the evening? I have no clue. So please let us know. And I kind of like to reiterate this because people like to comment on, if they're watching this on Facebook, they like to leave it in the comments there, apparently. I can't see that, so you have to be on the YouTube, my YouTube channel, to actually say anything to me and Adam so we can actually see it.
Well, I can look on. Would it be on Art of Travis email, or would it be on your?
It depends on which link they're finding.
All right, let's see. Art of Jim Brumall? No, that's not you.
But fun story, I worked on Arc World for Devil's Due, and she did one of the variant covers for it.
Oh yeah. I like Jim Brumall. She's a good artist and she's very attractive.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you over being a creep. What was that, Adam?
I didn't say anything rude.
Oh boy.
Whatever, it's true.
Oh man.
What's the matter? You can't You can't give a broad a compliment anymore.
What a scumbag.
What's with these birds?
These birds. Do
I'm
people
just gonna
still talk
start.
like that?
I'm just gonna talk like a 1950s gangster, or or a New Jersey caricature. I'm not sure which that was supposed to be.
Me either.
Friggin' dames.
Friggin' dames can't figure them out.
If they didn't have legs, I wouldn't know what to do with them.
Oh, Jesus.
Hashtag dames too.
Hashtag dames. Right. Right now, I can't even be serious right now. I was about to talk about hatching again because I'm using that as a texture for the amount of arm hair Wolverine has on his arm. Oh, I'm just cracking up from you talking about dames.
I do love them.
Too bad they don't love you.
Also true.
Also very true. Let's see. Yeah, I was like, oh look, I got some notification. It was just you liking the link. So I still only have I think about 3 people watching, including you. So what it's telling me is maybe might have to try another time slot or maybe a little bit better advertising. If people have any other ideas or comments about that, please leave some on the chat so I know.
Even if you watch this after it's no longer live streaming,
Yeah.
please let us know when would be the best time to live stream. And if you have any suggestions for the type of content you'd like to see on a live stream, like,
Yeah. Should
you
I do more
know,
of these draw cards? Should I be doing a comic book page? Which I
should he be teaching an intro to comics art class?
I'm cheaper than SCAD. I probably might offend a lot of if anyone from SCAD probably watches this, they'll be like, "How dare you?"
SCAD can suck it.
Uh, Honestly, unpopular opinion about SCAD. I think they do produce some great artists, but I feel bad for the people that paid so much money for that and they don't get the same opportunities or attention from their teachers.
Look,
Or
I like
or
Savannah.
or them to be honest, some of these people coming out who want to do certain disciplines, they might be good in one discipline but not the other. But it's usually the one they're not good in that they want to keep at it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just like if they want a career in the industry, that's the reason they go to these schools, and I don't think it sets people up. You're in debt, and then you're going to be working in comics. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless you start out working at the big two right away.
Look, I love Savannah, Georgia. It's one of my favorite places in the country and some place that I do occasionally consider moving to. But I know probably like 9 or 10 people who went to SCAD, and like 7 times out of 10, when somebody tells me they went to SCAD, it's somebody who does not draw or do any sort of artistic work at all. Like it doesn't seem like a lot of these people are getting their money's worth for. And I'm not saying that the education's not worth anything. I'm just saying people pay all that money and then they can't afford to be artists or don't want to be anymore. So, you be the judge.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know about art school to be honest. I think you there's traditional things you should probably like definitely learn like intro stuff like anatomy, perspective, and maybe I mean this is gonna sound weird like something like sculpture so you understand like how to work in 3-dimensional space. And that comes more into play with anatomy as well. So if you're getting the anatomy right, and understanding how things should look and should go. Maybe something like that. Uh,
Well, look, here's the deal. It's not so much that art school isn't worth it. It's that college in general is way too expensive. And with something like art school, where you're not getting something that you can get a practical job if art doesn't work out, it it's worse.
yeah,
You
you get
know,
you get more people going into animation and stuff um, than anything after comics. We're talking about because there's the Drink and Draw tonight, which is a great channel to check out if you like watching artists draw. Um, it's with Dan Panosian, longtime inker and illustrator. We actually covered one of his art books on Adam's channel, Lightning Culture. And they have Jeff Johnson. And Jeff Johnson was a guy who worked in for Marvel Comics, and I knew him because of Wonder Man, and I think he did some cross-gen stuff too. And he's also like he transitioned into doing like animation, so like working on different shows there. I think like um, maybe like Justice League and other shows like that. And then there's Dave Johnson, who also works in animation now, but he still does like covers and stuff for comics, and he was working in the comics industry for a long time as well. Probably, if anything, more recent because they made that DC animated movie of Red Sun, which he worked on.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
What that came out as a movie, or that he worked on
No,
that?
that he worked on Red Sun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him, unless it was a different.
Oh, I'm not. I have no idea.
I never read that one though. I'll be honest. I am aware of it.
I haven't either.
Looks like a few people might have worked on it, but yeah, Dave was one of them.
Wait, Jeff Johnson or
Uh,
Dave Johnson?
Dave Johnson, Jeff Johnson. I know it's confusing between the two.
Oh, yeah, no, I knew Dave Johnson.
Oh
I
yeah,
thought you were saying Jeff Johnson
no,
worked on. Okay, I was like, oh, that's
keep
interesting.
up, Buck.
Oh, sorry.
I totally channeled Laddie for that. Come on, Buck.
Well, you know what they say about me? I can't tell one Johnson from another.
I see what you did there. So you're gonna see this in a second, Adam. I'm just doing going in on this kind of a stubby Wolverine stubby arm over here, but that's supposed to be metal, like a metal bracelet around there. I'm just adding some kind of shadow to kind of imply like a shiny texture.
Yeah, I believe they came up with a reason for that in the story because typically the expectation is that Wolverine's hand would grow back.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, he even like at one time, I think he like generated like his whole body back after getting rolled over with a steamroller in one book from by the Punisher or whatnot.
yeah,
You know what I'm
he
talking
did.
about?
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you. Garth Ennis did that.
Yeah.
And I believe Derek Robertson drew it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, Wolverine's been had his body atomized multiple times. And they came up with some rule for it. I think like 10 years ago. Like Wolverine has like a maximum number of times he can regenerate his body.
Like a cat with 9 lives.
Something like that. Well, they had to come up with an excuse because they kept having artists or writers write these storylines where Wolverine. I mean, look, healing factor, cool, but when all of the skin and organs on your body have been completely obliterated, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense that he can regenerate, you know. But it was some story like Wolverine goes to hell or something like that.
Well, I know they killed them off, but 5 something like 5 years ago, 5 6 years ago, and then they brought him
That
back
was
again.
that, but this was before that. This
Okay.
was before.
Okay. Now I'm just figuring out some other highlights in here, and then I'm gonna probably move to Cyclops in a second.
Uh, so the story of these two characters is they had a fight where Cyclops was trying to kidnap Jean Grey in this universe, and Cyclops blew Wolverine's hand off, and as I recall, Wolverine took Cyclops's eye.
Yeah, that's why he only has one side. If you look at the
You're right,
illustration
and it's
right now.
also why his hair sweeps over the other eye because he's got the scar.
Yeah, it's before emo was cool too. You probably appreciate that because how much you like that emo hair flip in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. Um,
yeah,
let's
yeah.
make inside jokes about videos
Inside
that
jokes. Inside jokes. Everyone's seen Spider-Man 3 probably.
right, but anyway, and and yes, Spider-Man 3 is the best of the Raimi films.
Oh boy.
Handily.
I mean, I disagree, but okay.
It's not the best Spider-Man film. It's not even a good film, but it's the best of the Raimi Spider-Man films.
I mean, it's probably better than Into the Spider-Verse.
I don't know where you're going with that one. I know you like to insult movies that I like, but you like that movie too,
What?
Into the Spider-Verse.
No, I don't like it. It's not that good. At least it was better than Long Kiss Goodnight.
Uh huh.
Garbage movie.
That just says a lot about you, Travis.
What does it say? That I have taste in good movies?
No. The only thing you've ever shown taste in is wives.
I'll agree there. I will definitely agree to that. Not because she's working next door to me or anything. Wink.
Oh man.
What'd you do wrong? I hear some problems over there.
Oh, you can hear the dogs.
Well, I heard like the windows.
Oh, sorry, that's my. Somebody posted something on Facebook.
Ah, okay.
I don't even notice that. I thought you were hearing the dogs bark.
No, actually, I can't hear them, but it's not that bad. So now I'm switching to using a brush pen. It's a Faber-Castell brush pen with a felt tip. So it's not like a bristle one. I have one that's like a synthetic bristle. But traditionally, I mean, comics used to be like with either like a metal nib in ink or like brush and ink, and I guess more just I don't know when brush pens started to become a thing, but now you have these with a felt tip. It doesn't give the exact same feel that you can get with a real brush, but it's pretty close. And I'm going to use that for the outside contour lines of Cyclops here in a sec.
I do want to point out to everyone that's watching. So we at this point we've been streaming for almost an hour. And you've probably been drawing for 47 minutes out of that or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're still not finished one character in this, and it's not because you're slow. This is how long it takes. When you see somebody's art and you think, oh, that looks simple, like it really, people don't have any idea how much goes into
Yeah.
even drawing a single panel, much less a whole comic book. It's a lot of work.
Believe me, yeah. I was about to say, especially if you gotta ink it too. Pencil and inking and take some time. Oh, lost my brush pen. There we go. And I still got once I get these guys inked in, I'm gonna rough in a background, and then I'm gonna be like slowly going towards the finish line. Is what I would call that part. However, before I start the brushwork, I just realized I drew kind of do like implied like spark from coming out of Cyclops' glasses, to kind of imply that he's getting ready to shoot a beam at Wolverine as soon as he turns around. I'm just grabbing a pen so I can do that in a second. I just need to find the right one. So I'm going to use a 05. Yeah, and do that.
Ugh. So what's your favorite character to draw?
Um, I realized I like drawing. I don't. It's not necessarily just a character. But what I enjoy drawing are like creatures, like different like monsters stuff. I realized very recently that I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. But if I had to pick a character, it might be someone like Beast or something, because you're doing something like with or like a Nightcrawler where I have to draw kind of like a fur, like with you use textures or something. It's just more interesting to draw because you have to think about how the light affects the rendering of it. So where I'm going to place the shadows and everything. And I discovered that more recently because when I've been doing more traditional work, I've been trying this brush pen, and this is really fun to do, like use for like different textures and whatnot. I'd say if you ask me if I had to go to just for something to make it like to draw something quick, it's a Spider-Man head. That is the obviously the most like the quickest thing anyone can draw. Even if you're not that good, I think anyone can draw a good Spider-Man face. You know what I mean, Adam?
Yeah, no, I got you. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to draw mostly Ninja Turtles because the basic shapes of their heads was pretty easy to eke out. But I mean, Spider Man, the most complicated thing on it is really the webbing. Assuming you don't go Black Spider Man. Uh, Let me rephrase that. Black Spider Man suit. I guess you have to differentiate now. But well, what when you were a kid, what did you mostly, was there a
Ninja
favorite character that
Turtles.
you drew?
I can tell you for a fact, because my mom holds on to everything. There's like stacks of drawings of Ninja Turtles, Superman, and the Hulk. Those are like were my things when I was a kid. Um, and it's really weird about I guess about the Hulk, but excuse me. Those were like the three things I used to like drawing as a kid. And a lot of times I would do my own Ninja Turtles like comic. I remember drawing that because I loved the cartoon. I had the toys. And then when I got a little bit older and when the X-Men cartoons started coming on, then I became obsessed with the X-Men. And that was, man, I'm just trying to think, 92 or 90. I'm trying to think when the cartoon came out. But after that, then my mom started getting me the comics. And what was cool for me, you don't really get that now, but because of the age it was in, when the X Men cartoon came out, they all had the current costumes they had in the comic book right at that moment. So in some of the stories where they were doing in the show, where I guess more some of them were a little bit more recent, but it was easy for me to pick up and go and become a fan pretty easy because of that TV show. So I have like a ton of X Men drawings, like Wolverine, anything I could anything because of the toys exposed me a bunch of the characters. So I was just drawing in characters even if I haven't seen them yet in the cartoon show or came across them in the comics. So like a couple come to mind, like Archangel and Nightcrawler, for instance.
Archangel's very cool. Which isn't to say Nightcrawler isn't, but
Yeah.
Archangel has like one of the most like I mean I remember roughly when that character like came out in the 90s, and they took Angel, who was a pretty simple character. Everybody, you've seen depictions of angels before, and then they gave him this like metal update.
Yeah.
I mean, literal metal, but
I guess they're trying to also make it more interesting. Adam, did I lose you?
um
Oh.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know whose decision that was, but
You think it was Claremont?
no, it wouldn't have been Chris Claremont. At the time, Louise Simonson, I believe, was writing X Factor. Because okay, so Angel lost his wings in X Men. In was it Mutant Massacre? I want to
I'm not
say.
100%.
I believe it was Mutant Massacre. But Apocalypse was debuted in X Factor and gave him the metal wings as he became the fourth horseman of Apocalypse, Death. But yeah, who knows? I mean, it could have. Comics used to be more collaborative on those in the main companies back then. Like sometimes it would be the writer, sometimes it would be the artist, sometimes it would be the editor would come up with an idea.
Yeah.
When the movie Birds of Prey, which looks nothing like Birds of Prey and bombed horribly, but when it was coming out, the writer Chuck Dixon, like one of the great Batman writers of all time, he came out with it because he's credited in the movie because he was the writer who wrote Birds of Prey when it debuted, but he made a big stink because he was saying the editor at the time, and I don't remember the guy's name, but it was a friend of his. He was the one that came up with the concept of Birds of Prey and actually lobbied Chuck Dixon to write it. And Warner Brothers refused to give him, because of the nature of the contract, refused to give the guy credit in the movie because his contract with DC was like work for hire and
Well, that's
legal
how they get you. A lot of times was that work for hire stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the that in the '90s, but I remember documentaries I've watched where they talk about in the '70s and '80s that on their checks they would say as soon as you sign and endorse this check, you're signing over your rights. So they were like forcing them to just sign this so they can get their money.
This is an ongoing argument that people have in the comics industry with the advent of like all these films and video games and stuff like that. And I've always said, because people say like, oh, it's unfair, and I'm like, it's not unfair in the sense that like when an architect designs a building, he doesn't get ownership over the building, like because he was hired to do something. However, when you take something like a comic book character, like a Wolverine or what have you, and make a movie about it, that makes some of these movies make over $1 billion, and I do think it's unfair that the person who created it doesn't get anything. Like, should they get the lion's share? No, you all worked for hire, but can this major corporation afford to toss a bone to someone who made them that money, essentially? Because some of these, especially if you're talking about artists from like the 60s and 70s and before that, some of these guys died penniless.
Have you ever seen the documentary about Bill Finger?
No, I've heard a lot of people talking about it. The guy that supposedly really created Batman, or or at
Yeah,
least
literally, what you're talking about now, I'm not exaggerating. Literally, that is the problem that Bill Finger ran into, and he died relatively penniless, and he helped really co-create Batman and a lot of the characters in the look of Batman that's still used today.
right.
Think you would like Riddler, Penguin, Robin, I think the Joker. I might be wrong. But yeah, that was like an ongoing thing, and that was going for years. And he just recently, with the movie Batman v Superman, he finally got credit for being a co-creator. That's how long it took.
Of course, he's also dead, and people
Yeah.
had to lobby to get him that credit. Like
hmm
it wasn't like somebody decided, like, you know what, we should give Bill Finger credit.
Well, they
It,
had to actually
it
find family members, and it was actually like that's part of the documentary is them hunting down his granddaughter.
hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's not unfair for a company that hired somebody to do this work to say like, hey, like we you created something, yes, but we hired you to do that. However, when these things turn into an unbelievable success, and bear in mind, like when Bill Finger co-created Batman and did all this work, there was no such thing as
Yeah.
like they used to call them funny books, because the reason they're called comic books is because the stories used to be like they come out of like Richie Rich and,
Well,
well, not specifically that, but
the original story about how the comics really came to be was because someone, I forget what company, had the bright idea when they of making a book that was nothing but reprints of some of the comics, when they noticed that that was like some of the highest like selling things, or why what people were consuming at the time. And so you start have like it's more like the cartoon funnies you're like you're saying, and that caught on, and then the need for more original content started to come into play, and that's how you started getting some original characters. So like Batman, Bob Kane, the co-creator with Bill Finger, Bob Kane had his own studio, and they came up with Batman to create the character, right? So Bob Kane went to go sell it, sell the character. Does a handshake deal, but it's going to be like he's a studio, and there's a lot of artists like that, or stories where it's like, oh, I'm producing it, but it was multiple people working on there, not just this one person.
right. But back then, like they never considered the idea that these would be turned into. I mean, back then they were called like motion pictures. When back when I mean, people used words like the talkies.
A serial, like when they had like in front of a movie, if it was like a little like a snippet of a film, something like a short, it would be called like a serial. And there was like Batman ones, um, back in the '40s, I want to say. You know what I'm talking about?
I mean, that would have still been like 5 to 10 years after Batman was created. But my point is like they never had these options. They never thought
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh, someone's going to take this and make millions of dollars. And, and at this point in time, billions of dollars. So they didn't know to like save that work, and they couldn't have published it themselves, and so it's fair in some ways, it's unfair in others. But again, these guys shouldn't there's stories of some artists. I forget, there was one guy, I think it was the guy, was it Bill Mantlo, the guy that created Rocket Raccoon,
Yes.
or maybe it was the guy who
No,
created
that's
Deathlock,
it's
that was
Bill.
like dying in a hospital.
Yeah. It's he's the one who had that horrible
No, no,
accident.
you know what I'm thinking of?
Yeah. Huh?
Right, right, but that was recent. The one I'm thinking of is actually the guy that created Ghost Rider,
That I'm not
and he
familiar with.
tried to like. This was like 10 years ago. He had put up a big stink because Marvel made those Ghost Rider movies, and I don't think he got credit. And he did it definitely, and he was penniless, you know. And I think Marvel to make a example out of him, like sued him so that he couldn't even draw Ghost Rider at conventions. I don't
Oh, I
remember what the
do
guy's
remember
name was,
that
which
story. Yeah, I do remember that actually. That's a really crappy
but
thing to
yeah,
do. But yeah.
Bill Mantlo recently was like in a bad way, and it's so like crazy too because like Rocket Raccoon was a worthless property, like, and then Keith Giffen came up with the idea of putting him in a book with Star Lord, which later became the Guardians of the Galaxy, written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning. This was in mid to late 2000s. You know, all this happened, and all of a sudden, Rocket Raccoon became, you know, cool again.
Yeah.
And then when it kind of went away, and then by chance, Nicole Perlman, I don't remember what the girl's name is, but a woman that was working as a writer for Marvel Studios was asked like what she wanted to write, and she just chose Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
You know,
she wanted to do that.
and this was before James Gunn came in and wrote the actual script, but she wrote it a script herself, and you know, but then that movie came out, and now Rocket Raccoon is this massive product that you know people love. They you know there was Disney Infinity figures and
How
you know
crazy to
stuff at
think
theme
about that,
park.
huh?
Right. Meanwhile, Bill Mantlo, yes, has nothing.
Yeah, he's poor
You
guy.
know.
He's sitting in a hospital. I think his brother actually just died. I saw a news article about that.
Yes, yeah, the guy that was taking care of him. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that was a few days ago.
Yeah.
But you know, and it's not right, you know. But on the other hand, who should get the credit there? Bill Mantlo created Rocket Raccoon, but he didn't take off until Keith Giffen and then you know Abnett and Lanning came along and made him into a Guardian of the Galaxy and gave the character a little more depth and all that. But then, even then, the reason the character's worth so much money is because Nicole Perlman chose him. I think that's her name.
I mean,
But
if only we had this thing called
but
Google
if
where
James
you could
Gunn
look
hadn't
up
done
who it
all that,
was.
huh?
If only we had this thing called Google where you could look up and see what it was.
Well, what her name is?
Yeah.
I don't care that much. she 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 picked from three properties. That's the one she picked because she thought it sounded most interesting. It was like that or Moon Knight, and that's the one she chose. But my point is like you know. But then James Gunn came in, and he's the reason that the character is so popular. You know, so who gets the credit there? Does everybody? Does anybody?
Well, get the credit? I don't know how that works.
Well, the way it works is nobody gets credit for it. Like they sign contracts that exclude them from making a profit off of it.
Yeah. It's a shame.
So I
I
mean,
mean, that's
it's hard.
unfortunately, I mean, that's why you have studios, not studio, I guess publishers such as Image that came about, because that's a lot of it was the artists who were making a lot of the money at the time wanted more recognition and money, and they started their own company, Image Comics, and that's what you have now, which is a great
That's true.
documentary out there about that too.
And they did a lot of good things, and then they also created a lot of bad things that helped break the industry down towards the end of the '90s.
What you mean, break it down to negative?
Yeah, in the sense that um, so once Image Comics took off, These guys, none of them were writers. They were all strictly artists. Like you're somebody who likes to write in addition to drawing.
Yep.
These guys were like, hey, we're drawing X-Men, so let's make characters that look like the X-Men,
Essentially,
and
that's
we'll do
exactly
what
what
we
they
want with
did.
them. And even Spawn is designed in a lot of ways to look like a cross between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And I'm not saying the character's similar. He's not.
Apparently, he had created the character like a long time ago, but essentially, when he refined the image, though, it does look like exactly what you said: Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Um, but they basically took all the action and took out a lot of the character and story, and the 90s became, and the 90s had a lot of great comics that I still love to this day, but the 90s became like this arms race of extreme era comics.
Oh
And
God, yeah.
that's ultimately led to, like, say, Marvel going bankrupt, you know, like all the excesses of the 90s. And a lot of that can be, you know, not all of it, but a lot of it can be traced back to the Image guys who basically created the 90s or 90s era comics.
You know what's funny is I saw one of the documentaries. This guy was in line for Youngblood #1. He like bought a bunch, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm buying all these so I can have something to cash in on for my children's for my kids' college fund later on." Like it's like work.
People didn't know at the time.
Yeah. Well, that's what.
But you know, it's funny.
Well, what we call the speculative market. That's what really boomed in the '90s. I guess in the late '80s too, huh?
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry, I
The
just got an email.
speculative market.
Speculator. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know anybody who was doing that stuff back then. They might have called it that, but it wasn't as much of a thing. It probably didn't exist because a lot of the speculator stuff comes out of the movies because, you know, I mean, comics would be worth money back then, but the speculator stuff comes from, like, you know, Full Moon bought the rights to Moon Knight or whatever, you know, so they're going to make a movie. So this is the issue that such and such appears, like Bushwhacker.
Okay.
So they're speculating that this issue is going to be worth more or something like. That's what a lot of that comes from. Comics were there was definitely a comics collector market, but it was a lot more organic and less such and such is going to make a movie, so this is going to take off. And that's really what the speculation comes from. Right now, Travis is drawing happy little trees.
Yeah, I'm actually just using hatching to kind of just imply them in the background. So I'm just kind of just doing just a kind of quick background, nothing super detailed. I'm basically probably using one of the the artists who probably do a lot of these cards, do their trick of adding mist in the background. Like, this is the card. It's slightly based on, and you can see like all that mist and some construction stuff, and so as I kind of change this up, I just make it like an outdoorsy, maybe it's kind of deserty plane that they're in and fighting in. All right, so now I'm at the point where I'm pretty much almost done. I'm just gonna go in and lay in solid blacks. I'm just gonna take my eraser to this in a second. Actually, before I do that, let me draw the border. What was that, Adam?
Oh no, go ahead. I'll say what I was saying in a minute.
No, I was just saying before I erase.
Yeah, so you're.
Go ahead. I'm done.
No. So you're like this. This is still draw a card. This sketch is loosely based off the card you just showed.
Yeah.
With obviously some adjustments. No, I was gonna say you mentioned CrossGen a while back, and a lot of people don't know what CrossGen is. CrossGen was essentially the writer's version of Image Comics. And so a bunch of writers got together and they were like, all right, we're going to form our own imprint and do our own, create our own stuff. And obviously they had artists that work with them that co-created this
Yeah.
stuff, but it wasn't unlike Image which was literally a bunch of artists were like, hey, we're in charge. This was like more collaborative and involved, real writers, not guys who had literally never written anything in their life before.
Yeah.
Um, and I recall, you mentioned that documentary about Image, and there was a book that came out a long time ago, well before that documentary, that was essentially the same thing, like exploring the origins of Image and the fallout and all that. And I recall Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn, talking about CrossGen. He was like, "This is why," and he was insulting them. He was saying, "This is why that art's more important than story." When CrossGen tried to do what we did, it was a bunch of writers and no one cared.
I actually think they ran into the
And
same problem that
it's
Image
very
did.
Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, it does sound like them. But I think it ran into the same problem that Image did. Is that some of these people who wanted to start doing this stuff, I don't think they understand business. And not to say I'm no business or anything like that. It's just mostly saying that as an artist, you don't really have a good business sense sometimes, and like understanding about keeping books out on time, and or have understanding an editorial process and all that.
That's fair, but I also think it's fair to say that maybe a lot of the problem is they chose to do it when they chose to do it, which is to say the '90s had kind of just like really wrecked the end of the '90s had really wrecked the comic book industry, and that was not a good time to start a separate imprint like your own publishing company.
No, I agree with that.
And some of that goes to the actions of people like Todd McFarlane. So I've always thought that was kind of like not funny, messed up, but and honestly just kind of mean. Like yeah, maybe people didn't like CrossGen as much as Image, but like it's not necessarily because people don't care about writing, you know. Because that's also an eternal argument in the comics industry. What's more important, the art or the writing? And I've always personally said, when it comes to first issues, it's the art, because if you don't know anything about a book, the first thing you're going to see
Mm-hmm.
is like, does it have a good artist? Which is why a lot of times nowadays they have a cover artist that does one thing, and then they have an artist they can pay less money to who does the interior art. And but after the first issue, I can read a book that the art isn't that good, but the story's amazing. But I can't read a book where the story is garbage and the art is amazing. So it depends, And but there's other people who would disagree. There's other people who would rather buy a book where the art's just astounding that don't really care about the writing. It's some of it's personal taste.
Yeah, that's all it is. It is personal taste. I think it's a collaborative process. Um, I will say this: having worked with writers, um, I've now at least through who I've worked with, I now know what good writing is versus bad writing. And to make it a little bit shorter, is good writing for me is when everything on the page makes sense. If it's like a full script, everything makes sense, and I don't have to go back and ask a lot of questions. You should ask questions if you're reading the script, and if you have a question, ask it. But if you're stopping every couple of pages and you're confused about something like figure placement or what the plot is, or things get really confusing to you, you're not going to be able to translate that well. And some of that's due to not having an editor come in for the first pass. But a lot of the writers I've worked with, we've never really had an editor on board. I've probably worked with an editor twice. That's about it.
Yeah, you've mostly worked with independent companies,
Yeah,
and
and
then
even
you know
the independent
the guy
companies
who
that have that, it's not what you expect. And I'm not trying to talk bad. I'm not going to say any names or anything. It's because it's not talking bad about them either. Um, Sometimes you do need editorial to really come in and help out a
well,
book.
in the case of Arc World, the guy who would be an editor is the guy who's
Yeah,
writing the book that
that's why I said
you're drawing.
there's kind of like exceptions there, right? Like,
Right. And then when you go creator owned, you know, where you're collaborating with somebody, there's never going to be somebody to mediate there.
no. I actually, I've like you, Adam. Like I'll have to get you to read stuff. I've done that before with certain things I've written. You know, and created
Yeah, every
it.
once in a while I'll get a message. Hey, can you take a time out of your busy schedule of napping all day to help me out?
Well, right now is a good time to bother you, huh? Where everyone's kind of slow,
Uh,
unfortunately.
I mean, I haven't gotten any less lazy.
Well, that's very true. I saw your state of dress before the stream. That says it all.
Oh, whatever. Okay, if I was on a
If I,
beach,
if
like we get all mad because I wasn't wearing a shirt. First of all, it's a phone call, but you put it on video.
I was gonna turn. That's the only way I can get it to work. And
There's a little
you turn the
call,
video off.
there's a video button and a little call button right next to it. You just choose one or the over the other.
I think you're the problem here, Adam.
Well, maybe the problem is that you're a prude. The human body is natural and beautiful.
It wasn't anything beautiful or natural about what I've seen.
Oh, whatever. You liked it.
If I liked it, I would have asked you to keep the video on, dummy.
I mean, I can turn it back on.
No, please don't. I don't want to throw up on a live stream. That's not this kind of stream. Or maybe I could start getting more views if I did that.
So, one thing that y'all might notice is that Travis drew what was essentially the definition for the muscles that would later become shadow, so he could get an idea of, what he wanted to do. And a lot of times these things, like when you first start drawing them, they don't look like much of anything. You're like, oh, this looks horrible,
Yeah.
but it's almost like piecing together a puzzle. As you add more definition to it, as you add more pieces, it starts to become clear what it is.
Yeah. I
as it
also
starts.
have a quiet panic every time when I do traditional stuff and I start to erase stuff. I start to have this really bad quiet panic because it doesn't look the best sometimes. And I'm just like, oh god, it looks like crap. It looks like crap.
Well, you're not wrong.
Oh. But now I'm just using this just another Faber Castell pen. It's like a calligraphy pen. It's a soft chisel, but I like using it to lay in solid black areas because it really has a bendable tip, more so even than the brush. But and it has kind of if you could see if my camera's gonna focus, it has like a wedge tip. So I can kind of get into these little nooks and crannies, and be able to ink pretty fast with this. Instead of using like a Sharpie or a brush and ink. And when I say brush and ink, I literally mean like a thing of ink, and you'll see in a second, Adam, this is like the logo's faded, but Black Magic ink. And it's like an India ink. And just using just a basic brush just to kind of paint in just the solid areas. But this is kind of easier. to use a pen. What's up?
All right, I'm gonna say something weird here. Did you ever see the John Candy movie where he played a horse like Mr. Ed?
No. What are you
Okay,
talking about?
it was him and Bobcat Goldthwait,
Was it? He
and
was like a jockey or something.
uh, yes, at the end of the movie, he does win a race. Yeah, um, I
Go
forget
on.
what it was called, but it was very Mr. Ed. But whenever somebody says India Inc., there's a line from that movie where Dabney Coleman's the villain, and they're doing like so they run a marketing company, and or not a marketing company, a investment company. there's, there's this product that they're trying to sell called Indio Oats, and whenever somebody says India Inc., I hear Dabney Coleman in my mind going, Indio Oats, indeed.
Oh.
I, I know it's weird. It's just something which, to be fair, people don't say India Inc. in front of me that often, but it does happen.
How many times does that actually happen to you, Adam?
I mean, I hang around artists, so like not a lot, but a fair amount.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm sure y'all
That
have
was a good movie,
like
by the
loads of
way.
conversations about India Inc.
Let me, what was the name of that movie?
I'm sure if you
Bob.
look up Bobcat or Go was it Goldway or wherever on IMDb or something, you'll find it.
Well, that's what I'm doing. John Candy.
So right now I'm just doing final touch-ups. Otherwise, I'm done with this guy. So I'm just gonna touch up
Uh,
and do some
okay,
corrections.
the movie was called Hot to Trot.
Was it really?
Yeah, it came out in 1988.
What a great name.
Bobcat Goldthwait, John Candy, Virginia Madsen, and Dabney Coleman.
What a great name.
It was a pretty funny movie, honestly. But the late great John Candy.
It's no Uncle Buck.
Uh, it's not. It's definitely not. But it's still pretty entertaining. Not that anyone will ever see it because this isn't a movie that's coming on Amazon or Netflix or something like that. It
You'd be
should though.
surprised at some of the stuff that you could still find on some of these streaming apps, man.
Yeah, but a lot of it's like garbage that some little studio produced that couldn't get picked up, so they're just like, all right, just throw it on here.
You ever saw the movies that are like they're obvious they're like almost like bootleg movies. You know, it's like the spoof on Avengers or Transformers. It doesn't spoof, but they try to cash in on people's confusions. Like um like a
Oh, you mean
Transformers
like
one's like transbot like something
yeah? There's a
more
company that
transmorphers. That's what they called them.
yeah, there's a company that makes those. I can't. Let me Google that. Transmorphers
Transmorphers,
2007.
please don't sue us, Hasbro.
It's called Asylum. Asylum makes
Yeah.
those. There's other smaller companies that make ripoffs of Disney animated movies. Like instead of Frozen, it'll be like Frozen Cold.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Instead of Tangled, it might be Twisted.
So, like, I believe you, but it almost sounds like you're making this up.
No, and the worst part is like, so a movie like Tangled or Frozen, it takes like what 4 or 5 years to animate something like
Yeah.
that. From starting now, including pre-production, like script writing and all that. And they start making these movies well after those movies, so it's like the worst garbage CGI
Yes.
and like a story that was written by a 13-year-old.
It's that bad, people. Alright. I'm almost there. I'm just doing, like I said, just some tweaking to this.
Yeah, I think this piece is really coming together.
There's things I'm not happy with, but I feel like that's all these when I'm doing traditional. But I feel like, um, not to toot my own horn, I'm pretty modest about this stuff, but I definitely feel by doing these traditional ones, I'm definitely learning stuff from piece to piece. And it's really been translating over to some of my digital work because I can go back and fix whatever I want if I'm not happy with something. But I'm definitely learning some stuff about myself by doing this more traditional again.
You know, what's funny is I've told you this before, well, recently. Um, I never, and I don't know if it's your style in general, but just watching you draw X-Men characters over the last few weeks, I've noticed that there's definitely a an influence of Andrew Wildman, who drew the X-Men animated comics.
Yeah,
Um, something about your line work, and it's not you're not aping him, but it's something about your line work that you definitely see that X-Men animated series style that Wildman drew into a comic. You know.
that's what I got excited a few years ago when they announced they were doing um, that version of X Men '92, but it wasn't that good. I don't know if you read it, and it wasn't him that did the art; it was someone else. But I got excited because I thought it was supposed to be styled to be like the cartoon, and I was wrong.
No, I don't recall that. I never saw that.
So I'm just trying to figure out something with his visor, if how I'm gonna make it, trying to make it look a little bit more metallic. So what I do is kind of do like some squiggly um, lines that kind of imply like so that it's bending some of the light and that it's metallic.
Hmm.
You're gonna see that in a second, Adam. And then also I think, if I'm not mistaken, Cyclops also has some like everyone's so grizzled out here, so he has to have some stubble.
Yeah, the Weapon X piece might have to be saved for another one because
Yeah,
you
it just ran long. I think
that
it's just
that
because we
one's
were
not a
talking.
well, not just that, but this is a really detailed piece. It was more detailed than you intended it to be. Whereas the Weapon X one is, I mean, you know, you got his gear, so it's not
That's what I
simple,
realized.
but
Like
it's
when
a
I
lot
start
more
drawing in
simple than.
secondary characters, that's what takes it so much longer. When I was doing the last draw card, which is up, and I posted up yesterday, a rogue. I think what added a lot of extra time to that one was the Sentinel in the background because it's such a major part of that piece, in my opinion. When I originally
Oh, and by
saw
the
it.
way, we never talk about it, but anybody who's watching, whether you're watching it on the live stream or you watch it later, like all the pieces that Travis are doing are for sale.
Yeah. They're on. You can go
So
to www.travishemel.com, Hymel, and there's a web store. It's connected to my Etsy, an Etsy store. So I have some stuff available on there that you can definitely check out. Um, Especially if there's a piece, or if you have a question about it, give me a call and we can talk about. Maybe I could do a different piece if you want. Um, Real quick, and you're gonna see this in
well,
a second. What I'm doing now is I'm using this. I hate saying the name, but it's a jelly roll pen. It's a Sakura jelly roll pen, and it's a white pigment. And you've seen artists use this before in like artist alley type of situations where they use this to kind of go over areas, over black areas, kind of either draw in features or break up some of the dark areas. So that's what I'm using right now to add in some of the stubble and whatnot between these guys, and also to fix some things in this piece.
you sure that's not a Gelly roll pen?
No, it's not that.
um, yeah, but yeah, so it's any of the videos. you've got a beautiful Dark Phoenix piece.
That was on the
Um,
live stream video, actually. I
yeah,
wish I would
yeah.
have saved that one for the actual draw card, but it came out really nice. It just would have made a great video, like an all-in-one video.
Well, you can save it, all these under a playlist on your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, I actually need to build that. I feel like I'm still like discovering how to do a lot of this stuff, like connecting this YouTube stream to my Streamlabs. Took some research to figure out. All right, I'm gonna go in and fix a little bit more, and then I'm gonna call it done. So right now I'm just kind of like thinning out some of that line, those white lines that I added in, and also gonna add in a little bit more to the bottom of Wolverine's arm to kind of make that muscle go back a little bit. I mean, it's kind of using cross eye, even though it's supposed to be like a hair. It's not really shading, but that hair is acting as a shadow for me.
So where would you put this one, like as far as like fun pieces to draw in
Um,
comparison to the other ones you've done?
I don't know where I would put this as a fun. Actually, one of the ones I don't have it near me to grab, but it's gonna be on a future episode, which was fun. Was I did the lizard, and that's when I used one of the brush pens and did a lot of stuff with the scales, and that was really fun. That's when I discovered how much I like drawing creatures, and that was probably the most fun. The rogue one was probably my second. I don't know. There's things I don't like about this piece, so I don't know where to place it. And it's more so just because, like, I wish it was just Wolverine. I wish I had originally drawn that body a lot bigger. So basically, instead of filling this portion of the page, I wish he actually was a little bit more centered and maybe at a different, maybe more of an angle, like I twisted him at an angle and enlarged him by 10 or 20%. And that's just me. I still like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this piece came out really cool.
Yeah, I'm just getting rid of some of that other pencil, but I think it's done, man. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep working on it and working on it.
The only thing I'd say is maybe use the Jelly Roll pin on Wolverine's left cheek where it meets his costume, because there's like maybe like one line to delineate between his sideburns, mutton chops.
You said
You
on the
know,
left hand side.
yeah, the side where his missing hand is,
Oh, that side.
and
Okay.
maybe like one extra line underneath his right arm where the shadow meets the costume. But other than that, like I think it's a beautiful piece.
That's what she said.
No, no, it's not. She's never said that.
There we go. What do
She
you think,
usually
Adam?
cries
If you
when
can
she
see that
looks
now.
at it.
Or I'll wait. Can you see it yet?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that's perfect.
There we go. So yeah, I'm gonna take a step back for a second, and that's sometimes if you work too close at it, it looks one way. Yeah, it came out all right. There's some definite stuff I learned from this one, but yeah, I think I'm gonna call this one done. So I'm not gonna get to the other one today. Maybe I'll just make my own little solid solo video for this guy later on. It's not going anywhere. Because I know that you got stuff to do and I got stuff to move on to. But Adam, I
Yeah,
just
I'm
want to
gonna,
thank you for coming on and kind of hanging out with me and doing the stream. Really appreciate it.
sorry, sorry. When you got up, I, like it was just literally like a shot of like your stomach and your crotch.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, no, I'm gonna go make dinner and then go take a walk. It's a nice breezy day here in New Orleans. Um, but yeah, this is fun, and hopefully y'all enjoyed this. Travis has like the live streams are the only ones that I'm on. You do solo, and they're a lot shorter and sped
Yeah,
up
because I
when you do
speed
the.
them up. They take, depending on what it is, it takes anywhere between an hour to 2 hours, depending on how complex it is. Because this is not just a simple sketch either. But
Right,
yeah,
this is
this
basically a comic book panel, the one
yeah,
that you just drew,
essentially yeah. But I think it
which
came out all right.
I like. I think it's good to show people like what goes into really drawing into a comic. Honestly, like they ought to have like places like Scat ought to have like live streams like this going.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, so you can check out all the other videos on Travis's channel. Hit him up if you want a custom piece or if you like one of the pieces that he's drawn. They are for sale.
Yep. On the website.
And again, you can find us. Travis did a bunch of videos on lightning culture. Um, and those aren't drawing videos necessarily. A lot of those
Some
are.
art videos, and we talk. We like to talk comics with each other, and we do something called comic book roulette, where we kind of pick some back issues to talk about. And we did the same with the art books, which I'm excited for. One of the art books you ordered. I'll kind of keep it
The
as a
Brian.
surprise, just in case.
The, oh, okay. I was gonna ask, but keep it as a surprise. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, no. But the next art combo we're gonna do is in conjunction with the final part. We've been going through the old Spider-Man movies, the live action stuff, and we already recorded
Yeah.
this technically, but it didn't come out. We're gonna be doing I call this series Movie Rewind, where we go through old movies and all the Spider-Man ones are this won't that the movie rewinds won't always be you. Um, it just depends on what the movie is. But we've been going through Spider-Man movies, and Into the Spider-Verse is going to be last. And I happen to own the Art of Spider-Verse, so that's going to be one of the art convo videos. Is us going through some of the art production art
Yeah.
for that movie.
And I'm excited about doing that. Um, and I don't mind doing the video, but unfortunately, it just wasn't a good enough quality. What we probably both would like. So we're just gonna do it again. But
Yeah, technological issues, and I mean that's the thing. Like in a lot of ways, it's so simple to put out content like this, but in other ways, it's a real pain in the butt.
yeah. But
But
before I let you go, besides lightning culture, man, is there anything else you wanted to plug?
not right now. There's things that I'm working on that you know about that hopefully I can get together soon and definitely announce it. But it depends on a bunch of issues. So
All right.
I hate announcing things that never happen, which happens
No,
with me a
that's
lot.
fair. I just thought I'd just ask.
So, but yeah, check out Lightning Culture for sure. Travis is on it.
Yep. Just search lightning culture. I hate that YouTube doesn't let you customize the name of your channel or the link to your channel until you have a certain number of subscribers.
Yeah, it's really stupid. There's no reason for it, but YouTube doesn't care about small creators.
It is what it is, man. But again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for whoever was watching. Appreciate it. We'll talk to y'all real soon.
All right. Thanks, Travis.
Thank you, bud. Later.